Hello everyone, my name's Cliff and welcome back to my channel. This is Cliff's Dark Gems. And if you're new here, welcome for the first time. And today we're going to do my reading wrap up for the month of May. Stay tuned. Okay everyone, so I've taken part in 2 events this month. One is Zombiethon, and perhaps I could have done a little bit more in terms of reading sprints, watchathons, but yeah, as long as I read some zombie books, I'm kind of happy. And then there's also Horror Mayhem, where every week there were prompts and reading prompts. I didn't do it according to the rules. But that's just me. Maybe next year I might do something a bit different. But what I did do is all the books that I read this month, I kind of tallied up on this bingo card that was created, I think by MJ. I'm sorry if I got that wrong. It's the Horror Mayhem 2024 bingo card. As you can see, I didn't get all the prompts, but I got a lot of them, so I'm kind of happy. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to go through each of the books that I've read this month. I've already reviewed them, so I'm going to go through kind of quickly and then also talk about the prompts that they cover. So yeah, let's have a little bit of fun with that. And yeah, as I said, I think I did pretty well. Okay, first up I'm still reading Isolation Tales from Jason White, who's got the awesome channel, Jason's Weird Reads. And yeah, so far so good. Very imaginative, very dark, and just so weird. And I'm going to be basically talking to Jason on my channel, on my live, so I'm going to have a little bit of fun with that. And I will also review these tales and my favourite stories from them when I've finished. So yeah, that is Isolation. Okay, I had one DNF for the month, and that was Plants vs. Zombies Armageddon. Now this is aimed at kids. It's middle grade, it's kind of really lacking in any kind of substance at all, and just wasn't enjoying it at all. It's not like the game, which is kind of tower defense, which is addictive, but yeah. Also the fact that I was trying to read it on my Kindle as opposed to the graphic novel, I just gave it a skip. Oh, and I've kind of been forgetting to talk about the prompts. I'm going to go back quickly. Jason, haunted house, psychology, psychological, ghost, personal. And for Plants vs. Zombies, I'm going to cheat and go home invasion, even though I'm not sure if the game is, and graphic novel. So we got that far. Okay, the third book is Dolly from Susan Hill. Now this really did not work out for me, 2 stars. And it was a buddy read with Alex at Alex Unabridged. He wasn't like overly thrilled with it, but he did like it more than me. And I have to say that the author can write. You know, her prose is pretty elegant, and she does build a certain atmosphere and kind of a spookiness and an eeriness. But the problem is the characters fell flat, the story fell flat, and in fact some of the characters irritated the hell out of me. Actual story, the ending and what was going on just did not interest me at all. I'm sorry. The idea of creepy dolls, possessed dolls, that's not my thing. And saying that, let's have a look at the prompts that this covers. It covers dolls, possession, evil children, evil frickin' irritating children that I feel like smacking over the head. Sorry, that's very old school. I know it might not be PC to say that these days, but this one girl was just the most irritating child I've ever read about. She's just, and then curses, yeah. Okay, Okay, the fourth book is 20th Anniversary Screening by Jeff Strand. This was just absolutely hilarious, like a black comedy, a mockumentary, a slasher, one of the prompts, and I just had a lot of fun with it. It's about this movie, and I have reviewed it. It's about this movie called Roofer, and it's an amateur, very badly made movie with terrible actors, terrible death scenes, terrible kills, and just awful. And it's so much fun to read about it. And it's also very interesting the way they do it. It's like kind of a report on this tragedy. And then, obviously, 20 years later, they tried to do a 20th century anniversary of this movie, forgetting the fact that this might be a very, very bad idea. And a lot of people think it's a bad idea, because there was a copycat killer 20 years ago. So what could possibly go wrong? Yeah, this movie is a lot of fun, and I highly recommend Jeff Strand. I'm going to be reading more from him as an author. Okay, next up we've got From the Dust Return by Ray Bradbury, one of my favorite authors. Just gorgeous, magical prose, just so poetical, lyrical. And this tells the story of an eternal family in this house, and all these creatures, vampires, and creatures of the air, creatures of the night, creatures that come in the ground, and they all congregate at this house, and there's coffins, and there's Egyptian sands, and there's, it's beautiful. It's a little bit uneven, that's why I gave it 4 stars. It's like a collection of short stories all tied together by this house. And also this particular place is under threat from not just man, but just from man's disbelief, because the world's moved on and people just don't believe in these things anymore. So these creatures are under threat, and the house is under threat as well. And so they disperse, and they have to disperse. They have to find ways to survive. Yeah, and I really enjoyed it, and it ticks a couple of boxes like Halloween, holidays, vampires, but yeah, thoroughly enjoyable. And I love his cover. It's just beautiful. Okay, next up is a book of short stories that I really loved. It kind of took me by surprise. Not because it's a lesser known author, but it's outside of my comfort zone. And that is 10 Tales of Transformation by Gareth Howells. This book is kind of philosophical, it's thought-provoking. Some of the stories are hilarious. There's one or two that are kind of scary, particularly one. And yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. And the one thing I can tick off is aliens, because the very first story, which is hilarious, is this old eccentric woman who does not give a crap about anyone. Just makes a nuisance of herself. And she gets abducted by these aliens. And yeah, I'm not going to go further into that, but well worth a read. And another story that's actually kind of scary is that, I don't know, these students, this solar system, all these planets are connected, and it's just not Earth anymore. And the one particular planet, or yeah, I can't remember, but basically it's a theme park. And there's this new thing that's called, it's almost like a artificial, you put on your head and you can just experience anything you want. So it's a technology, and you can experience fears and horrors and all pleasure and all sorts of things. And it goes wrong. So I'm ticking it off as techno horror. Even though it's not, the book's not really horror, but this was a scary story. Okay, next up we got Adjacent Horror, Night of the Living Trekkies. Adjacent because it's horror and science fiction. Now, I'm not a Star Trek fan. I know F all about Star Trek, but I love zombies. This was part of my Zombiethon read, and I really, really enjoyed it. But if you are a Trekkie and you like references to Star Trek, then you're going to enjoy this story. It was gross, it's kind of really funny in places, kind of a survival, have to get out of this place, end of the world scenario. Just absolutely loved it, a lot of fun. Okay, the 8th novelette. So it's not a novella, it's not a short story, it's kind of in between, is On the Far Side of the Cadillac Desert with Dead Folk by Joe R. Lansdale. Now, this writer is not for everyone. He's very, very, very weird, and he goes places that might offend some people. It's very dark, but very darkly humorous and funny. And some of the horror is just, yeah. And this is set in a post-apocalyptic world, and it's I think I've actually spoken about this book. It's a bounty hunter that picks up this pedophile serial killer who basically kills this young girl, and he picks them up at a zombie topless bar, if you want to call it that. I'm not going to go further than that. And it's bizarre, and it's twisted, and it's sick. It is sick. And they meet towards the end of the story. All I'm going to say is that it ticks off the boxes of kind of religious horror, sort of, and cult horror. And if you are easily offended by those sort of things, like religion, then don't read the story, because he goes to play. He doesn't care. It's very black, it's very dark, but it's very funny, if you're a person like me. And the 10th book I read was Holly by Stephen King. Now, I really enjoyed this book. This was 5 stars for me, despite the politics, despite the COVID, despite everything that people complain about. I absolutely adored these 2 elderly villains. And I'm not going to give the prompt because it's a bit of a spoiler, but I think you might be able to guess what it is. But yeah, they are truly terrifying and horrific. And Holly is an awesome character as usual, but I have spoken about this book before, so I'm not going to go on and on. Yeah, but I highly recommend Holly. Okay, the 11th short story that I read, and I decided to reread this as a diverse author. That's Clive Barker's Books of Blood 2. Now, this is one of my favorite stories from Clive Barker's Books of Blood, probably in my top 5, and I've read the entire volume 1 to 6. And this is called Dread. And it's basically these university students, and there's one student that's not quite right. He doesn't care about his studies. He's only obsessed with one thing, the fact that all of us, what makes us tick is dread and fear, and he wants to find that out in others. And he starts befriending these 2 students, and they kind of get closer to him, which might be a mistake. And I'm saying it's a slow start, but once you get into the story, it gets crazy. And it's probably one of the most brutal, just freaking awesome endings to any short story I've ever read before. And all I'm going to say is the other boxes I ticked is clowns and kidnapping. So there you go. Okay, and finally, from 65 Great Spine Chillers, I read a story called The Yellow Wallpaper. And I can't remember who this is by. Let me just check. Charlotte Perkins Gilman. Yeah. And that's a classic. And I've been meaning to read it for quite a while. And I wanted to read more from Spine Chillers. It's got green on the cover, for packs. But yeah, I've been meaning to read this particular story because it's a story about kind of feminism. It's about how men treat women in the 19th century, and it's a slow descent into madness for this woman. And you know, it's kind of haunting, kind of sad the way she's treated. And it's also kind of, I suppose, relevant for today as well. Of course it is. Just women's place in society. In that time was like seen, not heard. And you do what your husband tells you to do. So yeah, it was a very creepy story. And she's in a room, and this yellow wallpaper starts transforming and playing games with the mind. I'm not going to say anything more, but it's chilling and it's haunting. And I really enjoyed it. Okay everyone, so that's my reads for the month of May. Horror Mayhem and Zombiethon, it's great. I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know down in the comments down below what you think. I'd love to have a conversation with you. If you enjoy this video, please be sure to like and subscribe. It really helps out my channel. But yeah, until next time, keep those pages turning, and cheers.